Intro. When the guns of August thundered across Europe in 1914, the world entered an age of destruction unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand had set the fuse, but now the explosion engulfed nations, empires, and millions of lives. This is the story of how the first battles of World War I unfolded, how optimism turned to horror, and how an entire generation was caught in the storm. The Schlieffen Plan, Germany's gamble. Germany knew that war with both France and Russia would mean fighting on two fronts. To avoid this, they turned to a plan long prepared, the Schlieffen Plan, crafted by Count Alfred von Schlieffen. It was simple in theory, but brutal in execution. Strike France first, with overwhelming force through neutral Belgium, capture Paris within 6 weeks, and then turn east to crush Russia. It relied on speed, precision, and total surprise. But there was one fatal flaw. Invading Belgium brought Britain into the war. Germany had assumed Britain would stay out of a continental conflict. They were wrong. When German troops crossed the Belgian border on August 4th, 1914, the British Empire declared war. Belgium's stand, the Battle of Liège. Few expected tiny Belgium to resist, but it did. At Liège, Belgian forts stood like iron sentinels against the German onslaught. For nearly 2 weeks, the Belgian army fought with extraordinary courage, slowing down the mighty German advance. Massive siege guns, including the terrifying Big Bertha howitzers, reduced the forts to rubble, yet every day of delay mattered. That resistance gave time for France and Britain to mobilize. The Western Front takes shape. As German armies stormed through Belgium, they left a trail of devastation. Civilians were executed, towns burned, acts that shocked the world and turned global opinion against Germany. By mid-August, German forces were closing in on France, while the French launched their own attack in the east, the Plan 17. France's plan was rooted in pride and a belief in the power of spirit, the élan vital. French troops, dressed in bright red trousers and blue coats, charged into German machine guns shouting, "Vive la France!" It was bravery, but it was also slaughter. The early French offensives were crushed, costing hundreds of thousands of lives within weeks. The British arrive, the BEF at Mons. Meanwhile, the British Expeditionary Force, BEF, small but highly trained, met the Germans at the Battle of Mons on August 23rd. Outnumbered, the British soldiers fought fiercely, their rifle fire so fast that Germans thought they were facing machine guns. But the overwhelming German advance forced a retreat, the beginning of the long, desperate, great retreat toward the Marne River. The miracle of the Marne. By early September, German forces were within striking distance of Paris. The French government evacuated to Bordeaux. The city braced for siege. But then came a turning point, the First Battle of the Marne. French General Joseph Joffre, with help from the BEF, launched a counterattack. In a moment that became legendary, Parisian taxi drivers were ordered to drive thousands of soldiers to the front, the so-called Taxi Army. For 6 bloody days, the French and British halted the German advance. Exhausted and stretched thin, the Germans retreated. The Schlieffen Plan had failed. The birth of trench warfare. After the Marne, both sides raced north in what became known as the Race to the Sea, trying to outflank each other. But neither could break through. By the end of 1914, a vast line of trenches stretched from the Swiss border to the North Sea, nearly 700 kilometers long. The war of movement was over. The war of attrition had begun. Closing. The first battles of World War I shattered illusions of glory and speed. The machine gun, the artillery shell, and the sheer scale of modern war turned Europe into a nightmare. And yet, this was only the beginning. The soldiers who entered the trenches in 1914 could not imagine that 4 years later, millions would be dead, and the world would never be the same again.